Something unexpected is happening between two big NFL names, and it's getting intense. Jackson Powers Johnson, a young rising star from the Las Vegas Raiders, is suddenly in the middle of a surprising situation with Steelers legend Cam Heyward. But is this a real fight, or just a small moment that got blown out of proportion? Ever since Jackson Powers Johnson joined the Raiders, he's been making a strong impression. He plays tough, smart, and doesn't back down. Some are even calling him one of the best young centers in the league. But no matter how good you are, the NFL will always test you. And for Jackson, that test came against one of the toughest veterans out there, Cam Heyward. On Max Crosby's podcast, Jackson shared a moment from early in his career. He talked about facing Heyward, making a small mistake, and losing that play. He wasn't upset, just being honest. He even praised Heyward for taking advantage of the moment and saying a few words afterward, like experienced players usually do. But then something strange happened. Heyward saw that clip, or maybe just a headline, and didn't seem happy. He reacted strongly on social media. That got people wondering, did he really hear what Jackson said? Or was he just reacting to a clickbait quote? Because Jackson wasn't being disrespectful. He was actually giving credit. But with the season so close, even a small moment can cause big reactions. Before we get deeper into this Raiders story, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and tap the bell so you never miss a Silver and Black update. All right, let's jump back in. For Raiders fans, this moment shows something important. Jackson Powers Johnson isn't scared of pressure. He's confident, respectful, and ready to go head-to-head with the league's biggest stars. Even someone who might end up in the Hall of Fame. And if this back and forth continues, Raiders Nation will be watching every step. Let's go back to the moment that quietly started all this. Jackson Powers Johnson shared his welcome to the NFL experience in his own words. It wasn't about showing off or being dramatic, it was just honest. He went up against veteran Cam Heyward and gave up a sack. But here's the thing, Jackson didn't blame Heyward, he blamed himself. I beat myself, he said. I stepped the wrong way, made a mistake, and paid for it. You could hear the respect in his voice, but he also added, with a spark in his tone, I really hope he plays again next year. He wasn't being cocky. He was pushing himself to do better. That's the mindset Raiders fans love, someone who takes responsibility, stays hungry, and wants to grow. But somewhere between that podcast and the headlines online, the meaning got lost. Cam Heyward responded strongly, saying that wasn't the only time he got beat, and pointed out that the Raiders and Steelers won't even play each other this season. It felt like Heyward was showing his veteran pride. But Jackson wasn't being rude. He was just being real. And that's what makes this whole story stand out. Jackson Powers Johnson isn't just a rookie with skills. He's someone who owns his mistakes, remembers what matters, and is already becoming the kind of leader the Raiders need on the field. So, where do things stand now? We don't know if Jackson Powers Johnson will reply to Heyward's comments. And honestly, he might not have to. Because when you watch the game, a different story shows up. Yes, Cam Heyward did beat him and got that sack. But overall, Jackson did well. This wasn't a one-sided fight. It was a real battle. And Powers Johnson proved he belongs. Let's look at that important play. Jackson was lined up at left guard, facing Heyward one-on-one. The team was shifting the protection to the right, probably because a safety was moving forward, maybe planning a blitz. That left Jackson alone against a future Hall of Famer. He made a small mistake, stepped too far. Heyward saw it and took full advantage, breaking through and getting to the quarterback. But here's the key thing. Jackson saw his mistake right away. He didn't blame the team or anyone else. He watched the tape, accepted what went wrong, and explained it clearly. That's not just learning, that's growing. For the Raiders, this is huge. They have a young player who's not just skilled, he's aware, pays attention to details, and is already thinking ahead like a chess player against the league's best. This isn't just about one play, it's about what comes next. On that sack, Jackson Powers Johnson overstepped again. Same technical issue, and Cam Heyward capitalized perfectly. With a slick move of his right hand, he slipped past Jackson like a shadow and brought down Aiden O'Connell before he could even get the ball out. Heyward had a strong outing in that game. 1 sack, 3 pressures, and he clearly made his presence felt. But here's where things start to twist. Some critics are now saying Jackson Powers Johnson isn't the real deal, that he was just trying to dodge accountability by saying, "I beat myself." Some even interpreted it as him taking shots at Heyward, as if Jackson was claiming Heyward wouldn't have gotten the sack if not for that mistake. But that's not what happened. Watch the podcast clip. Jackson never downplays Heyward's skill. In fact, he calls the moment a "welcome to the NFL" reality check. He owns the mistake, acknowledges the trash talk, and moves on. That's it. Yes, he briefly mentioned other veterans like Calais Campbell in the episode, but none of it came off as disrespectful. If anything, it showed humility. A young Raider recognizing the challenges of going toe-to-toe with the league's elite. And here's what really matters. Powers Johnson isn't just holding his own, he's punishing defenders. He's already showing signs of becoming one of the nastiest, most dominant centers in the NFL. The Raiders didn't just draft a lineman, they drafted a tone setter. There are maybe 2 or 3 players in the entire NFL who can dominate the way Jackson Powers Johnson does. He's just built differently. And here's the wild part. Last season, he didn't even play his natural position for half the year. He's a center by trade, but he stepped up wherever his team needed him. That tells you all you need to know. Of course, credit where it's due. Cameron Heyward is no slouch. He's a future Hall of Famer and a nightmare for any offensive line. But this back-and-forth storyline, it's getting blown way out of proportion. Scroll through social media and you'll see fans ripping into Powers Johnson, using that one quote like it defines him. Some Steelers fans are even saying they're glad they ended up with Zach Frazier instead, claiming Frazier is already better. Look, Zach Frazier is talented. Top 10? Absolutely. He might even crack the top 5 in a couple of years. But guess what? So will Jackson Powers Johnson. And that's not speculation. That's based on watching every single snap from both guys. Both are rising stars, and the league is lucky to have them. Still, it's funny how a non-story has become a storyline. Even Heyward chimed in, saying he wishes the Steelers were playing the Raiders this season, but they're not. Unless, of course, both teams make the playoffs. And that's the real headline. If the Raiders and Steelers meet in the postseason, you'd better believe all eyes will be on that trench war, Heyward versus Powers Johnson. And this time, Jackson will be at center, right where he belongs. He even said it himself on Max Crosby's podcast. Center just comes more naturally to him. And if the Raiders find themselves in a playoff clash with Pittsburgh, that's the battle everyone's going to be talking about. Let's talk about something that's quietly heating up in Las Vegas. Raiders OTAs are underway, and one name is starting to grab real attention, Dante Thornton. Now look, we all know how this works. Off-season workouts don't always tell the full story. What you see in shorts and helmets doesn't always show up when the pads come on in training camp, or when it's 3rd and long in week 1. But sometimes it does. And right now, there's real buzz building around Thornton. According to Vincent Bonsignore from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Thornton's been showing a lot more polish than people expected. That's interesting, because the scouting reports coming out of college said something completely different. At Tennessee, Thornton didn't have a complex route tree. He mostly ran slants, some skinny posts, and a lot of deep verticals. Simple stuff. That led many to believe he wasn't a refined route runner, just a straight-line speed guy. So, let's dig a little deeper into Dante Thornton, because the updates just keep getting better. According to a report from Las Vegas Review-Journal, Thornton was initially viewed as a raw prospect, someone who'd need time to develop before making an impact. His college offense was simple. The thought was, solid athlete, but not quite NFL ready in terms of polish. But that's not what's showing up at Raiders OTAS. Thornton's footwork at the line, sharper than expected. His route running, crisp. And here's something new. He's also taking reps as a kick returner. That last one came as a surprise. No one was really talking about him on special teams. But with his speed and athleticism, that might end up being a game changer. Not just a depth guy, not just a rookie trying to make the team, but a real contributor in multiple phases of the game. Now, here's what this all means. Thornton might actually carve out a role in year 1. Most elite wide receivers flash something special early. If a guy's going to be great, even just solid and dependable, you usually see signs of it in his rookie season. Whether that's in the return game or making big plays from scrimmage, those early flashes matter. And let's not forget, Dante Thornton returning kicks adds a whole new layer to what he brings to the Raiders. The team also brought in Tommy Millau, another rookie who might help in the return game too, though many believe he'll focus more on punt returns. Either way, it's exciting that the Raiders are adding young talent who can contribute not just on offense, but on special teams as well. That's big. But what really stands out? Thornton looks more polished than expected. Now here's something to think about. Thornton and Trey Tucker could both end up filling a specific role that's often overlooked in the NFL, the influence receiver. Every wide receiver has a role. Some are slot guys. Some are deep threats. Others are fearless over the middle, willing to take hits. Then you have the influence guys, speedsters who pull safeties out of position to open up plays for teammates. They might not catch a lot of passes, but their job is just as important. When they run deep at the right angle, they force a safety to commit. That opens space underneath for someone else. Trey Tucker has done that for the Raiders for the past 2 years. Now, it'll be interesting to see if Thornton can do the same, or maybe even more. At 6 feet 5 inches, he's taller and more physical. Could he become a guy who takes hits across the middle like Calvin Johnson or Demaryius Thomas once did? We'll find out. But one thing is clear, Thornton's route running is sharper than expected, and that alone gives him a shot at earning a real role with the Raiders. Now, let's talk about Ashton Genty, one of the most exciting rookies to watch this season. The Raiders' social media team recently dropped a few clips of Genty making some catches during OTAs. Nothing over the top, but it's what those clips represent that matters. Genty isn't just a runner. He's showing off soft hands and sharp footwork, and that should get fans fired up. Here's the thing. At Boise State, Genty was a force on the ground, breaking tackles, making defenders miss, and constantly creating explosive plays. But what people don't talk about enough is how those same skills can translate into the passing game. Look around the league. Guys like Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, and Jahmyr Gibbs have changed the game. Not just because they can run the ball, but because they're weapons in the passing game. They line up out wide, run clean routes, and become mismatches for linebackers. That's what Genty can be. He didn't get a ton of receiving reps at Boise State, but when he did, he looked natural. He ran crisp routes, showed good timing, and most importantly, he's explosive in the open field. He's the kind of player who can turn a short catch into a big gain. And if the Raiders use him right, Genty could be a major difference maker right away. What the Raiders do with Ashton Genty this season will be key. I just hope they don't treat him like a traditional, between-the-tackles workhorse. Genty's talent is too dynamic for that. Instead, I'd love to see him used like how the Lions use Jahmyr Gibbs, lining up in the slot, going in motion, catching screens, running angle routes, and getting the ball in space. Because here's the truth. 30 carries between the tackles will wear down even the best running backs. Those inside runs bring hard hits from big defensive linemen and linebackers. But when you use a back on the outside, on sweeps, tosses, or quick throws, the hits aren't as brutal, and that keeps a player like Genty fresher and more dangerous over the season. The Raiders have a chance to be smart and creative with how they use him, and by spreading out the workload, they also give guys like Sincere McCormick, Raheem Mostert, and even Dylan Lauba, who they just drafted last year, some meaningful touches. McCormick especially showed flashes last season, averaging nearly 5.7 yards per carry in his 3 starts. So, if the Raiders rotate backs and keep Genty in space, they'll be harder to stop. And with Chip Kelly calling the plays, I believe they'll find a way to get the most out of everyone. Because, let's be clear, Ashton Genty is better than people realize, especially as a threat catching passes out of the backfield. Let's wrap it up with one last update, and this one's about rankings. Pro Football Focus just released a list of the top 10 interior defensive linemen, and it's raising some eyebrows, especially when it comes to Christian Wilkins, the Raiders' new star defensive tackle. The list, by Trevor Sikkema, goes like this. 1. Chris Jones. 2. Dexter Lawrence. 3. Cameron Heyward. 4. Quinnen Williams. 5. Jalen Carter. 6. Leonard Williams. 7. Derek Brown. 8. DeForest Buckner. 9. Jeffrey Simmons, 10th. Christian Wilkins. Now, some fans think Wilkins is way too low at number 10, and honestly, I agree. Sure, he missed a chunk of last season, but when he's on the field, he's one of the most disruptive defensive tackles in the NFL. His motor, quickness, and ability to crash plays are elite. The rest of the list has some strong names. I don't have a major issue with it, but not having Chris Jones at number 1 is surprising. Jones has been the most dominant interior pass rusher for years now. Personally, I'd say Chris Jones and Dexter Lawrence are in their own class. Tier 1, no doubt. Jones gives you elite pass rush. Lawrence, pure power. Both are game wreckers. But don't sleep on Wilkins. He's got a chance to prove everyone wrong this season, especially in silver and black. Dexter Lawrence is a beast. Let's just get that out of the way. He's so dominant that teams have to double-team him on almost every play. If they don't, he'll just throw the blocker out of the way. He's that powerful. Now, looking back at that PFF list, I don't really have a problem with Cam Heyward, Quinnen Williams, or Jalen Carter being ranked 3 through 5. That feels about right. But here's the thing. Christian Wilkins belongs in that same tier. Even if he's at the bottom of that group, fine. But I can't sit here and say Leonard Williams, Derek Brown, or DeForest Buckner are better than Wilkins. Maybe you could make a case for Jeffrey Simmons, but that's it. The rest? No chance. Honestly, if someone ranked Wilkins as high as number 3 or number 4, I wouldn't even argue. The guy's movement for his size is elite. He's quick off the snap, has great hands, and can wreck plays, just like Chris Jones. Now sure, Wilkins missed time last year, and he hasn't had the same level of production yet. But he's still young, and if he stays healthy, don't be shocked if he finishes next season as a top 3 defensive tackle. Yeah, the Jones fracture is something to watch, but if he's back to 100%, he's going to remind the league exactly who he is. Christian Wilkins has the tools to be special. I'm talking right up there with Chris Jones and Jalen Carter, the kind of guys who dominate both in the pass rush and against the run. Right now, I'd say Wilkins is even better against the run than as a pass rusher. But that can change. He's got the quickness, the technique, and the mindset to level up his pass rushing game too. I get it. Some Raider fans weren't thrilled about the contract. They felt it was too much. But trust me, this guy is different. He's a top 5 defensive tackle when healthy. And his ceiling, he hasn't even hit it yet. And here's the thing. He won't be the only guy offenses have to worry about anymore. In Miami, Wilkins was the guy. He got all the attention. But in Vegas, you've got Max Crosby, Malcolm Kuntz, and others taking pressure off him. That changes everything. It means Wilkins is finally in a spot to shine, not as the focus, but as the finisher. I still think putting him at number 10 on that PFF list is way too low. But what do you think? What's your take on Jackson Powers-Johnson, Ashton Genty, and this D-line ranking? Because honestly, the Raiders might surprise a lot of people this year. If the rookies step up, this team could not only make the playoffs, but make noise when they get there. Let me know your thoughts down below.